All right, so before the break, we were talking about crisis management and how you have to just walk folks through. Now, this is an interesting thing because in order to run crisis management, when there's a hostage situation or even a natural disaster, and on the scope of like the 2011 floods where it just wiped out two large states, were just devastated, and you guys had to go in where people lost their houses, kind of like what we experienced in Katrina. But even bigger, right? I mean, it was even wider scaled than that.
We had one third of Australia's land mass was under floodwater.
So 1/3 of the entire country's land mass underwater. It's just this huge thing. So you really have to keep your head about you.
Yep.
Have be critical. I'll say it like this: be mentally tough to walk through a critical thinking matrix, but also come up with a creative solution and understand the emotions that are running wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me about how do you do that first off at that level, and then we're going to bring it down personally so we can help folks. So at that level, at the corporate level, at the institutional level, how do you run those? How do you run that?
At the corporate level, it's not dissimilar to dealing with anything. What have we got to do to cut the emotion out, get to the facts, and then be empathetic around our response? So you can't be empathetic unless you understand the facts. There's a lot of people that want noise to go away. This is big stuff and there's so much noise and I want the noise to go away. There's others that want to jump in and solve all the problems. And then there's some people that do their best Kermit the Frog impression and wave around with their hands flailing in the air.
Could you just show us that? What's that look like?
No, I'm not going to do that. No, I've committed I'll never do that because...
Very nice. The best Kermit the Frog. Okay,
best Kermit the Frog. So it's getting information to give decision makers comfort with ambiguity. They're used to being in very stable situations. Things are laid out for them. Now we're in an ambiguous situation. They don't have all the data and they have to make decisions. So it's giving them data that is relevant to the situation at hand. It's allowing them to voice things which are irrelevant and get them to think through that logically and have them make the decision to park that away. In some cases, it's having a career-limiting conversation and saying, well, that's not relevant to today's discussion.
So you do, if they get caught what I call a sand trap, sometimes you'll let them vent and get it out of their system, ride that emotional thing out. But if they don't get over it quick enough, then you have to say, hey, that's not relevant. Is that kind of how it goes?
And I think there's a polite way of doing it, and that's that expression that's come to come out from me quite often is, can we just think about this for a sec? And what...
Oh, wait, hang on. I want to say this. So this is the scripted line that I'm going to pick up on. So if you guys hear me using this, you know where it came from. So whatever comes... See, mine is, how do you mean? That has been my question. When they say something, I'll be like, how do you mean? But now I'm going to add to my repertoire. Can we just think about that for a sec? Is that what...
That's it. That's it. And that all that is people that have come to work with me in that crisis room, working with the executive, have come to realise that's my way of saying, that was a stupid thing to say.
Or we say in the South, bless your darling heart.
Exactly. But if we can just think about that for a sec, somebody else will fill that the next pause with, well, is that really what we want to do? Is this going to give us what we're trying to achieve? And over the years, working with the executive, getting their trust, and I think the first time it happened, it surprised me. The second time I was ready was when our CEO turned around and said, what do you think we should do? And it's like, well, you're the CEO. I'm just the guy running your command center, and I'm helping you think this through. What do you want my opinion for?
Right, yeah, right.
The second time I was ready for that
you're
question.
the subject matter expert. They're the one. That's why you're in the room, is because they don't know what to do. Tell me how to walk through this process.
Tell me how to go. And we were asked, we had people throwing out these ideas, and it was getting rather complex. And I'm not a complex guy. I like things fairly simple.
You and me both, brother.
And for our organisation, the thing that made sense was, 3 priorities, 3 mission priorities: staff, security, customers. And it was, the logic behind that is, we protect our staff. We make sure they're okay, because if they're not okay, they're not coming to work. Security. Have we got a secure place from which to work? If we don't have a secure place to work, our people are not going to be comfortable coming to work. If we don't have staff and we don't have a secure place to work, we can't serve our customers. So it's kind of the mission priorities there to get back to normal. We look at the staff first, we look at security of our organisation second, and we get that service back to customers. So it's
just a very simple triage, almost like when you and I talked about this in previous conversations here this week that we've been together. It's almost like you take the kindergarten solution.
Yeah.
get really simple with this thing and cut out all the irrelevant, the sand traps, and just say, here's the 3 things. Now, when we're doing in the military, we have the buddy aid. It's really, stop the bleeding, start the breathing, treat for shock.
Exactly.
We don't treat for shock first.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times that's what the temptation is in these crisis situations is to treat for shock. Now, bring that down to the personal level when we are facing a crisis where I'm about to lose my job, and you went through a very personal attack of crisis.
Yeah.
And would you mind kind of walking us through that?
Yeah, sure.
A little bit?
I mean, look, the 15 months ago, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. She went in. Australia's got a wonderful program where women over 40 go through breast screening every 2 years. She got a letter saying it's time to go in. She's, very smart about doing this. They've reminded me it's time to go. She went in. They called her back. That's not normally a good sign, but she's had a call back once before, and they rescanned. Everything was good. She walked out. This time they said, we found something, and after she got the letter, she started doing some checks, and she felt a lump. She went in, they did a biopsy, they confirmed it. And they confirmed it as that the cancer was the root cause was a protein called HER2. I've come to learn more about cancers and hormonal indicators and protein indicators than I care to, but that's part of the process.
Right.
So she's diagnosed with cancer, and the surgeon that performed the diagnosis, we selected him to do the surgery. It took 2 surgeries, a 3rd surgery to get a port to assist the chemotherapy to be put in, and then 15 months of treatment every 3 weeks. So 6 rounds of chemo, 26 sessions of radiation, and then another 17 sessions all up of a drug called Herceptin.
So this was going on for 15 months. 15
months.
Now let's get to the good part, and then we'll go back and kind of. So the good news is today
she has a hair back, everything's back to normal, and we recently celebrated by bringing all the kids and the grandkids, and we went into LA. We spent 5 days seeing the theme parks in LA.
Nice.
Then on the 4th of July, we flew over to Waikiki.
Waikiki.
Missed the fireworks by 30 minutes.
But it's Waikiki.
It's Waikiki. Another 4 days there, and then back to Australia.
Okay, so that's great. So you guys had the celebration.
Celebration.
It's so fantastic. Now, you and I have been talking back and forth while we're in the middle of this, and other people are freaking out more about this. It's not even their fight. It's you and Bridget's fight, and they're freaking out more about it than you are. And then that almost freaks them out even more because you're not freaking out.
Correct.
Okay, so you and I talked about that the fear of the fight is actually worse than the fight itself.
Correct.
But you and I talked about this decision tree matrix that you do. You have this decision tree. It cuts all the emotion out of it, and here's just what we're fighting. And then could you talk to us about that decision tree?
That decision tree got down into, I called it binary. And by binary code is either 1 or a 0. We looked at it as yes or no. So we had questions, and the questions flow. And when you're first confronted with this, you tend to jump straight to the worst. And we were kind of there. It's like, well, okay, the worst is cancer kills you. Bridget's going to die from cancer. And we confronted that as a possible outcome. Then we started looking at what's next worst. Okay, well, as a female, she's going to lose her breasts, and for a female, devastating.
Right.
The next is we've got treatment, and the treatment will allow her to lead a good and long life, and she's been treated for the cancer. The cancer's no longer there. So we started researching questions, and we found quickly that if we researched too far, we started branching off. And we were starting to look for problems that didn't exist. So we brought it back.
Wow.
We were conscious, we brought that back and said, hold on. We need to know, is this going to kill her, yes or no? If yes, let's deal with that path, and here are the questions. If no, why will it be no? What is the course of treatment? Will it be drastic, or will it be not so drastic? Yes or no? If it's very drastic, what does that mean? What does that look like? If it looks like removal of breasts, why would it do this? What would be the options after that? So this was really about trying to break that tree down. Instead of having all the tree and all the branches and all the leaves and all the roots and all the grass around it, into we'd start on a branch.
And just take what's in front of you.
And
as
we
the
would
yes
get
or no.
we would get to the junction where the tree would branch,
Mm-hmm.
and we would ask the questions and understand, is it yes, is it no? And we'd find out the answer was no. So we moved down the no path. The yes path is discarded.
So it's totally, so instead of, and so you're not constantly worried, you're not constantly
No.
anxious, you're not constantly, so you have complete control of this thing
Yeah.
just because you broke it down in this binary.
We broke it
yes or
down.
no.
Now, background.
Yeah.
I'm a crisis manager.
Right.
Bridget's a project manager. Her job is to hit milestones. So we started talking about not just that binary decision making, but what are the milestones?
So the two of you come together, so you're doing crisis management, she's doing milestones, and you come up with this.
we come up with this approach.
So, yeah, tell me more about this, because I think this will help people. If you can break it down, here's the yes, no, and now here's my milestone that I need to hit.
Here's the milestone I need to hit. So the meetings we had with specialists were coming up. So there was no point wasting time on negative thoughts before the meeting. We'd do our research. So if we knew the meeting was in 7 days' time, we did our research up until the surgery's is going to be scheduled for this date. A lump will be taken out. When will be the next meeting? Well, it will be 5 days afterwards to check the wounds. Will the pathology be back? No, it won't. When will that come? Another 5 days.
So there's no sense in worrying for 10 days when so you're not freaking out for 10 days.
We go in, we expect that all we're going to get is a checkout, just a checkup.
Right.
I'm going with her because her job is to ask the questions. My job is to ensure she's asked the
So
questions.
you're just sitting there to make sure, as support, make sure she
That's
does
it.
ask the questions that you guys have decided, that you actually sat down and said.
What are the
"Here's
important
right.
ones? The thing we learned early from her surgical oncologist was he rarely gets people asking questions. So he's got to direct. He's got to direct them into
Kind of walk
what
them
they're
down
doing.
the path. Yeah.
And he will come up with what he believes is the best course of action. But if you don't feed anything back to him on how you're feeling and what are you thinking about and what research you've done, he can't do anything other than just make an educated guess. He's well educated, he's well qualified, he's seen this 1,000 times, we've done it once.
Right.
We're doing it once for the first time.
Right.
So you can place a lot of faith, however, you've still got to do your own research
Right,
and
because
understand.
whose body is it?
That's right,
Right,
it's
whose
her
life
body.
right, exactly.
It's
So
her
you
body,
guys-
it's her life, it's our life together.
So you guys take control of that, where
Yeah.
other people are kind of being passive and letting the doctor kind of lead the thing. You guys are
Yeah.
digging in, saying, "No, it's our life
Yeah.
together. It's your body, and,
Yeah.
and because you're my wife, it's my body too."
Yeah.
Right?
So we were going meeting
right.
to meeting. We were, what's going to be at this meeting?
Yeah.
We expect to get this. So we're not going to ask questions about that. We're going to wait for the pathology. And through the pathology, what are we looking at?
And then start the decision tree
start
again,
the
and then
deci-
find the milestone. And
all
then so
over
you're just
again.
taking it as it come one day, and you're not freaking out through this whole thing, which is actually freaking other people out because they can't understand why you're
Yeah.
under control when your whole life should be crashing down, and you're not. You're just going through the decision tree, the milestone decision
The
tree.
thing that freaked people out the most was how quickly Bridget got back to work. And she got back to work because it was important for her to get back.
Mm-hmm.
And people were treating her as a victim of cancer, as a victim. And I'm not a victim. I'm being treated for cancer. I'm not a victim.
You're not a victim. You're going to beat this thing, and so it's just a whole mindset.
It's a complete mindset. By nature, she's a positive person.
Right.
But being positive is fine. You've still got to come up with a plan.
You still got to execute you still got to have an execution. Right. You can't just be like, "Oh, it's so wonderful.
It'll be okay.
who
Let's
needs a
just
hug?"
hope for the best.
Right. And no. So you actually had a plan to work it out.
We had a plan. And that plan came from, we want to understand this. So we want to ask informed questions. And that was where we went with every single meeting and down to that thing of, where's the list of questions? Now, and then we would workshop them to make sure that they were in order along our decision tree of, is it yes?
So you
is
guys,
it no?
before you go into the doctor, you're rehearsing your questions
Yeah.
and analyzing everyone. Is this even a good question we want to ask? Yes or no? Is this a good question? So you're doing you really are engaged and taking control of this thing. You're not just kind of winging it.
And this is the thing in my job. My job is not to be the expert. My job is to help the people that are the decision makers find the expert that is going to give them the best options.
So you and I, we really do the same thing. You're a mental toughness coach just like I am. We're just walking people down the path. Not that we know the answer, but we know how to ask the questions and keep the emotions under control and walk somebody down that path.
That's it.
Okay, so look, when we come back from break, you and I had talked about the doctor and listening, and I think that will help people. If
Absolutely.
That's all right, we'll be right back in a minute.